This episode of Convo by Design is dropping in June 2025. And if you're listening the day, week, or even month it's released, well, you already know that. But I've been thinking a lot about adding these timestamps to each episode moving forward. It just helps frame the conversation, especially considering how fast things are changing now. And it kind of puts it in its place in time. I'm recording this in, what is it, end of May. And I just got back, or middle of May, and I just got back from a swing through California, starting up in the Bay Area and making my way down through Pasadena and Los Angeles. I met with some brilliant creatives and brand leaders to talk shop about the market, the mood, the vibe, and where things are right now. If there's one thing we can all count on these days, it is the unpredictability of, well, everything. Between extreme weather events, climate change in general, and an ever-shifting political landscape that is just whipsawing supply chain and the price of things. It's crazy. But again, not pointing fingers here, just acknowledging how these forces are impacting the shelter space in very real ways. So moving forward, expect more context in these intros to give you a little bit more insight into the conversations and when these conversations are taking place. You can also expect more conversations focused on market dynamics, specifications, supply chain challenges, and how brands are staying sharp with costs, design, and materials. Today, you're going to hear from Alexander Dornbracht, Vice President and General Manager of Callista and Roburn, both brands under the Kohler umbrella. Alex literally grew up in this industry. His family business was in the same space, so he knows this inside and out. And he's here to give us an unfiltered look at what's really happening in the business, his story, and what you might be able to expect in days, weeks, and months to come. So we're going to get to it right after this. At the highest level of design, the absolute best specifying designers, architects, landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That's one of the reasons why I am so proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on three priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1. Aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2. Durability and maintenance. I've told you about my board flipping stories from my own wood decks. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease and ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious of the environment now, and they want the same of their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood, color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior, as it has been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled material. Their advanced PVC, vintage, and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech, or you can check them out directly, timbertech.com. So Alex, it's really funny because you and I have been circling each other's orbits for, I don't even know how many years. And we finally met for the first time in person at KBIS this year, which was fantastic. And I love that we're like, okay, we finally just have to schedule this. Let's just go ahead and do this. So we did it. So I'm glad that you made the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was long overdue. Let's put it that way. Great to finally meet you in person, and yeah, looking forward to have a good chat with you.
Yeah, for sure. Um, it's interesting. I heard you say something when you were talking, when you were speaking with someone else, starting off an interview. You were like, let's just go ahead and uh, get the elephant out of the room, or however you phrased it. Um, Call out the elephant in the room, I think is what you said. It's interesting to me because you come from a family-run business, now working for another company in the same space. I don't think it's the elephant in the room. I think it's fantastic that you're able to take this truly unique experience of a family owned and operated business. All the things that you learned, I'll hear from you. You can tell me the story, but I imagine you running around a factory as a kid, learning the industry. That would be an incredible value to Callista, to another company as you go there. So walk me through the journey.
Yeah, so the journey, native German, and as probably many are aware, like my family built a fantastic business in the industry, Dornbracht, which my great-grandfather started right after World War II, when the markets opened back up, and my grandfather really made it into a national powerhouse, really in Germany and surrounding countries, and then my dad really made it into a global powerhouse over the 30, 40 years that he was really engaged with the company. So me growing up with that was obviously a really great experience, right? Because I think beyond having a factory that was located 5 minutes from our house, so we built our house literally next to the factory. Moved there when I was about 5, 6 years old. So just growing up in that environment and what it means to, I think, run a manufacturing plant in vicinity to your home, right, to your school, to your entire society and community that you engage with, was quite a unique experience. I'm very grateful for the experience. I think growing up around that, you are ultimately shaped by your dad in that sense, right? Like because you grow up with I think a different sense of dinner conversations of what is being discussed at dinner, right? The good things are discussed that are going well at the factory, at the company. The bad things are being discussed, right? The ups and downs of the economy, the challenges that a business has to go through, what it means to be in growing pain, right? What it means to be in pain if certain product launches are failing or having issues. So all those type of things, by the time you're like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, they kind of passively shape you. You don't know what they mean at that point in time, but I guess looking back, they probably do shape you differently than I guess having not having that at the dinner table discussed. So I'm very grateful for that experience because now in my late 30s, I can look back at that and like there's certain things that sometimes may click and like a memory pops up right from like 25 years ago, which is almost surreal to think about. Um, but yeah, that was me as a kid growing up, and then I had an incredible opportunity to study abroad in California doing my undergrad, UC Santa Cruz out of all schools. Why that was a partner school of the German university I went to, don't ask me. Seems kind of random, but I really enjoyed the experience and traveled California at that time. And then when I got back and graduated, I said, I'm out of here. I'm out of Germany. I got to move to California. That's where the life is. That's where I want to spend my next decade plus, and that's what I did. So I really packed 2 bags. I worked on an internship back then to get my visa going, and then moved to the US at 22 years old with just 2 bags, and really started my entire adulthood in that sense in San Diego. Spent about a decade in San Diego, then working, right, building my career. Ended up going back to grad school as well. Got my MBA from the University of San Diego, and in my early 30s, then, so I had my career actually essentially fully built besides this industry, besides my dad's company, right, my family's company, and at some point my dad called me and said, hey, there's an opportunity to join the US business and run the US business. which is located out of Atlanta. My family built an office there in the late 80s. Georgia was always a very attractive point for European companies to establish North American subsidiaries due to tax incentives, which is why you see a lot of our competition is in Georgia. Companies like Duravit, Hansgrohe, Porsche North America, Mercedes-Benz North America, they all went to Georgia due to those incentives. So we were there too. We were one of the first ones that went there in the 80s. And I made a decision fairly quickly. You know what? This sounds intriguing. I actually didn't have plans to join the family business. So I was very happy in California. I worked in the tech space. I worked in the education space. Had a couple of really cool companies I got experience with. And then fast forward to 2018, made the move to Atlanta to run the Dornbracht North America operations. Got my feet wet in the industry, found the love for it very, very quickly. I think specifically on the luxury side, our industry is such a fun environment. The things that we get to do, the specs we get to work on with designers and architects is just yeah, such a cool space. And then the inspiration that goes around, like the spaces we're able to create, very, very exciting. Fast forward to 2020 COVID, right? Put additional pressures on, I think, every business globally. And the family decided business is going to be sold. Business was when and ended up being sold in I think it was September 2020. So over 4 years ago already. Time flies. And that threw me quite a big curveball, right? Because as part of that sale, I got an exit contract as well, which is kind of surreal to look at. A very strange experience to go through because that wasn't on my bingo card when I made the move to Atlanta to then join and put my time and effort into the business to take it to the next level. And in about it took me about 3 to 4 months to really make my peace with it, but then also figure out what's next, right? I was only 34 at the time, my entire life in front of me, and I made the decision that loved the industry way too much to leave it just behind and do something else, right? I really only just got going with it. I haven't really seen or made my mark yet in being able to see things through. And yeah, quite a funny story as I was browsing LinkedIn and then was trying to figure out what's next, right? Like what came up a lot was luxury, just the luxury space in general. And Kohler, the Kohler family, and then the Kohler brand has always been, we've always had a respectful relationship. My grandfather, even with Mr. Herb Kohler, who passed away in 2022. So those roots have been going back quite a long time, right? There's always been a very respectful relationship. And they are still a family-owned business, right? Which is one thing I grew up with in terms of culture, a thing I really loved. And right, the Kohler family, the Kohler company happens to own a brand called Callista that has been in ownership for about 35, 40 years at this point. And I thought, why don't I reach out? Why don't I proactively reach out just to have a conversation? And I heard back from Larry Yuan back then, who ran the global kitchen and bath business. Quite quickly, we had a casual conversation. I said, hey, here's what happened in my life. Here's what I would like to do. And yeah, guess what? 2 months later, I had a job offer on the table and was able to take over the Calista business.
It's incredible. And there's so much to unpack there. Excuse me. There's so much to unpack, and I have so many questions for you. I imagine too for Kohler, to get someone with your experience, there's experience that individuals gain from school. There's experience individuals gain through work. But there's another element when you grow up in a family-run company, because you have kitchen table conversations that most people are not privy to, even if it's just hearing conversations over a phone or conversations that you're not necessarily supposed to be involved in, but you've kind of gained that knowledge base, that industrial institutional knowledge that becomes second nature to you. And for you to be able to share ways and means and processes and things that you've learned from a young kid when our brains are so malleable and you're just picking up things right and left, right? That it just becomes second nature to you. What do you think you were able to share or implement immediately that was just kind of second nature to you from kind of like this trifecta of family business, education, and experience all wrapped up in one package?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the big ones was I think a general mindset how a leadership position is approached in a company. So I think growing up in that environment, right? Like I don't think my dad ever thought of himself as a CEO. My dad thought of himself as an owner and entrepreneur. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I took from that. So I don't really approach this job or this Calista role as a VP and general manager. I consider myself an owner of the business and owner of the brand at this point. And I think that's quite different because a manager versus an owner, they do at the end of the day make different types of decisions. And one of the things that I learned in that environment growing up is I think the importance of decisions that have to be forward facing and long term and drive long term value ultimately. My one thing I really love about the whole Kohler ethos and Kohler brand mentality, the same thing, right? Kohler looks forward into the future. They don't try to make hasty decisions over the next 3 to 6 months. You make tactical business decisions short term, right? But the vision of where you take a business and what you want to accomplish ultimately with your business, your product, your brand is always long term. So I think that was just a very natural alignment. And I think that's probably one thing I was able to bring back to the Calista business, it not being managed, but it being owned. Fast forward 4 years in, we're seeing the results of that, meaning it's a product roadmap and a product vision that really came to life with that long-term ambition behind it. Right, a longer term vision to what is Calista's next step? What do we want to accomplish? What do we want to leave behind in the industry? What innovation topics do we want to drive? Which is, I think, not a completely different approach than managing a company, but there's a fine line, I think, it what makes that just a very special relationship with your company and your job if you think of it as full ownership. And David Kohler talks about that a lot as well to our different management teams about the importance of ownership in a company, right? The importance of thinking as yourself of whether you are a product owner, whether you're a department owner, whether you're a full P&L owner or a full brand owner, right? That at the end of the day doesn't matter, but the importance of that ownership of treating it more than a job, right? Treating it something that you take pride in and then that you want to bring maybe some intrinsic motivation to, right? Like how you want to see yourself fulfilled through that job, through that role, through that outcome that you're working on, right? I think that's probably the big one. And if you asked me 5, 10 years ago, I couldn't have told you that that is how I'm going to approach this, right? It almost happened naturally with I think a love and a passion that came out for the craft, for the industry. But now I understand it, right? Now I can look back and really understand it, understand how I got here, and I think it's going to give me a good blueprint and good playbook for the future as well to whatever right new roles and opportunities hold. To I think approach it in that way and be very successful with that.
I think that that's really interesting, and I don't want to dwell on the past, but I think part of your history, your family's company history is really, really interesting. And it's a conversation that I've never had before. So I kind of want to touch on that as specifically it relates to the future. Your family business was started in Germany post World War II in a rebuilding area that, to be honest with you, I don't know that many could actually even really conceive. I mean, you can look at what some countries have to look forward to now, um, post-war in this environment. You have where we stand business-wise, and I certainly want to touch on that too. But I'm curious, Did you have an opportunity to talk to your grandfather or your father about what that was like, um, building a company at a time when the entire country, the entire world really is recovering and rebuilding? And I come from the lens of it's a new start in some ways. You're still dealing with scars and old issues, but it's starting a new company that over time had developed into something fantastic. And I'm just curious if you got any of that historical story along the way about what that was like.
Yeah, I've certainly heard many different stories and viewpoints on that. I unfortunately didn't get a chance, I think, to get to know my great grandfather who started the company really well. He passed away at a very, very young age when I was very, very young. Um, Knew my great grandmother a bit, but then with my grandfather, I did have that relationship. And I think to your question, I think one thing that you and I cannot understand anymore is, I think, the resilience in a human mind, what people had to go through, not during World War II, but also post World War II. Because we couldn't possibly understand it because we haven't been put through that, through the pain, right? Through the anxiety, right? The very rough time with death all around you during that time. And I think that generation, right? My grandfathers, both sides, mom and dad side, they were about 15, 16 when World War II ended. So great grandfather must have been, um, right, 25, 26 years older at that point. Um, but they had an incredible resilient mind. And I think the entire, really, the German country that was devastated at that point, right? The civil population that I think picked themselves back up within a couple of years. To move forward, right? Like that's one thing I think my grandfather always preached, right? The resilience and the push that humans have to always push forward and move forward, right? Independent of what happened or might have happened. He also taught me a lot about I think, I grew up financially very wealthy, right? I've had everything I could have ever asked for, the education for free, grad school for free, right? So I'm very blessed in that sense. I think, though, what the World War II generation taught us is to still value. In Germany, as we have a saying, right? Like, you're not worth a dollar if you don't value the penny. I think just as a mindset approach, right? And specifically, if you run a company that has a mix of all sorts of layers of society coming together, right? Creating beautiful products. I think having respect for that and just not taking anything for granted, right? I think enjoying the very financially stable and blessed upbringing that I had, but understanding where it comes from and not taking it for granted. I think that's one of the big things I took away from that generation. Plus, I think the resilience to push forward and never really giving up. Yeah, you fast forward post World War II, 15, 20 years after. I mean, Germany was starting to become a powerhouse again. Think about that, right? From complete destruction and to now look at 50, 60 years later, producing some of the, if not the best products in very many different industries globally. Um, so I think there's a lot of lessons learned from that generation that we can only study, but you and I will probably never fully understand it because we just have not gone through that, and hopefully we never will.
Agreed. But it's interesting because where we are now in domestic politics, global politics, and the economy. And I don't want to go down that road necessarily, but I do think that there are some really interesting lessons that can be gleaned from history that one could apply today. And I'm curious how that affects you. Tell me about the Callista brand. Um, Tell me where it sits right now in design, in luxury design. Tell me about the role of the brand and what your hope for brand growth happens to be.
Yeah, so Callista is a very, very unique brand in the marketplace. And even when I looked at it as a competitor in my previous role, I've had high respect for it. which is why I made a decision. This is actually a brand I want to have ownership over, I want to work for, because the things that I saw from the outside, it did very, very well. So going back in history, Callisto was founded by two European immigrants out of the UK. And Callisto's journey in the late 70s into the 80s was, I think, approaching design and design language with a very open global mind. So Callisto was one of the first companies sourcing products from Europe, from France, from Italy, having artisan partnerships and artisan craftsmanship be brought into collections in the 80s and 90s out of Asia. There was no other company doing this. It was very much in the DNA of the founder's mentality. I think approaching the US as the melting pot that it is, with taking global design inspiration and bringing that back to the US market, but not necessarily saying like we are a German company or an Italian company. They had a global approach to design, which I found very, very interesting as I started learning more about it. Callisto ultimately acquired by the Kohler family, Kohler company, in the 80s, right? Fully incorporated into the late 80s. And then it had a journey underneath Kohler, right? And underneath Kohler, it was supposed to be the right, the shiny example of a luxury brand in the portfolio, right? It started from we were very small when we were acquired back in the 80s, right when I was born actually, 85, and had a successful growth journey until now. And now me coming in, I was able, I think, to bring a fresh look to it. As you're probably aware, every company goes through different phases, and each phase is going to hit a cap at some point, and you're going to have to figure out like what's next. And what's next sometimes requires a braver step forward for more evolutionary change rather than small incremental changes. And I think, and I guess whether you believe in the universe or destiny or whatever else, it kind of worked out being both ready at the same time, myself for my next endeavor, having just enough experience to be able to take a very, very well established brand like that and infuse it with my own ideas. And Callisto also being at the point where being very, very well established with a very high standing in the community, but also a question like what could be next. So then the last 4 years have been about, I think, crafting that vision of what is Callisto's next step. And to summarize that for you, what it comes down to specifically for myself and my team is American luxury design with a global point of view and a global penetration of markets. And let me elaborate on that. If you think about the design industry, specifically in the US, it is highly, highly dominated by European brands in the luxury sector. A lot of designers for a lot of their products have always fondly looked at Europe and specified European products in a lot of different ways. Yes, there's American companies that are present, right? And Callisto is one of the shining examples that has done a very good job, I think, establishing itself in the luxury sector. But I thought there's something there, I think, claiming more ownership and putting an entire vision behind it of what does good American luxury design look like? And why can it be different? And why is it such a unique way to approach design? Because I always found it fascinating that most of the American design community that look at Milan and Salone at one of the highlights of the year, I think getting inspiration and finding new brands to work with and all those things. Well, where do all the Europeans look to? They don't look to Salone. The Europeans look to New York, they look to Chicago, they look to Los Angeles, they look to Vancouver, right? They've always taken so much inspiration actually from what we've done domestically here, which is such a unique approach to design. If you think about it, there's no other country in the world that has the richness and the variety of design styles and aesthetics and architecture than the US has. Because New York is so different than Miami, is so different than Chicago, is so different than Dallas, is so different than San Francisco and Los Angeles. You have everything at your fingertips in the same country. So we as a brand, we want to really capture that. And tactically speaking, that means that you have to provide design styles that fit into a variety of different aspects, right? if you think about Central European design, it is very minimalistic, very contemporary. They don't do a lot of traditional design. Well, if we want to cover and be very successful in the domestic market here, you got to have strong traditional design in the luxury sector, strong transitional design, and strong contemporary design. We're doing contemporary design with our own point of view, which has been a big push over the last couple of years. If you look at our new Guys collection, our new 002 collection, for example, those are right, American contemporary design aesthetics where Callista is now driving a new point of view with the right quality metrics and everything else behind it, I think to not only have it domestically be successful, but also in export markets like Middle East is a growing market for us right now. China is a growing market. We're expanding into Latin America. We're expanding into India. And I think that is really the overarching vision now for the brand, that we want to be a driver in that export of what the very best out of the US looks like, and is going to be globally very successful. Like we showed the first couple products at Salone last year. We are having international meetings, and I can tell you designers in the Middle East are excited. Designers in Shanghai are excited. Designers in Puerto Rico, in Costa Rica, in Peru, as we're expanding through Kohler's very well established international footprint now in getting those meetings and having those conversations. So it's a good credibility check to tell you, yeah, you're on the right track. This is all heading. This idea is turning out to be a sweet spot.
You are listening to my conversation with Alexander Dornbracht. We'll be right back. The most important word in the design industry today is service. Product, incredibly important. Price, important. Selection, incredibly important. But stellar service is the premier idea that can make all the difference in the success of any project. This is how design professionals like you demand great service for your projects. And you get your favorite brands in one place with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commissioned professionals to help you specify the right product for each of your projects and get the best price. Non-commissioned, that is incredibly important. And at Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, that means their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that with over 60 years of service in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, inspiration, all the best brands, great prices, the best in the industry when it comes to service, and you know it's reliable. You know that you are going to get predictable results, reliable results every time. And now you have the Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team to help you with their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you've ever experienced before. Earn 3% in Best Buy e-gift cards or 2.5% in a reward check for every qualified and delivered sale, in addition to special trade pricing, exclusive offers, access to exclusive special events, and so much more that I can't even begin to try and list it all here. And here's the cherry on top. Access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands and the stellar service you deserve from a company that has been serving the industry for over 60 years. Now, terms and conditions apply to the Pro Rewards program and builder trade incentives. So visit a Pacific Sales expert at a showroom today for full details and learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. Yeah, well, and by the way, it's really interesting for those listening. We're going to do some visuals here, so go ahead to the show notes, and there'll be links. Alex, you mentioned the 002, and one of the things that I think is, for me, I love the Callista ethos, the philosophy behind the design. I think it's fantastic. It's this combination of modern, in some cases almost industrial, mixed product use. I feel like there is some Bauhaus in the inspiration for the design, maybe a little bit of steampunk in there too, in a really luxurious way. So you talk about the 002, and I'm looking right now at one example of that, which is the wall mount sink faucet with the white Carrera cross handles. So it's really interesting. It's a very modern look,
Yep.
but it's a traditional feel. There's this cross-generational presentation to the product. And there's, for all of this, I mean, the wall-mounted bath spout, there's just the 002 in particular that we're looking at now. Talk to me about the relationship between management and design. And let me preface the question by saying this. My background is in broadcast. I came up in radio. And one of the things that I always found so frustrating about the industry, broadcast industry, was that you had this push-pull, this battle between sales/management and programming, where programming was the creative side and always wanted to do what they wanted to do. But at the same time, you had to make sure that it was a saleable product. You had to make sure that there was a market for it, that people wanted it. So I'm curious what that relationship is like between the management side and the design side when it comes to product and innovation.
Yeah, very good question. So Calista has done a very good job of that, I would say, over the last 20, 25 years already. But 4 years ago, we made a couple of changes to how we're going to approach product development and build an entire new process, structure, and system behind it. And to me, today it is a trifecta between design, product marketing, and engineering. Because to your point, if you just have design drive the conversation, there is the business muscle, there might be the business muscle missing, doing the hard work of the amount of SKUs, right? How much volume we're going to drive in each market, what the actual market cap is, what the competitor analysis is, right? What the need in that market is. Engineering on the other side to design is also there in a push-pull relationship to make sure that whatever we're designing towards is actually executable. Doesn't become a unicorn product that we might only have to be able to 3D print at some point in time. We can actually manufacture this out of brass in our factories and execute this. So these three people on a team have all different backgrounds, different skill sets. But bringing them together, you have to create a process around so they eventually start becoming a very strong collaborating team. And that you can drive, and that we drove through culture and through teamwork. Because if you align your resources and your teams now towards a specific product line like a 002, where everyone is briefed on the vision, everyone is briefed on a love story, which is, by the way, how every product discussion starts at Calista. It never starts with design. It always starts with a love story of what do we want to accomplish? What do we want to give the designers? Rather than, I need a contemporary faucet. That's never how a product discussion starts. And in my mind, in the luxury space, never should start that way. It should always serve a very specific purpose. And then you put your entire passion behind it. You put the right team members in place. And then eventually you'll end up with a lot of phenomenal design sketches and ideas. And now it becomes a luxury problem, meaning how do you walk away from 90% of the ideas and then align on the right one? And I will tell you, and that might sound a little odd, I think there's certainly still a very rational aspect to that. And you understand how good design looks like at some point, right? Your designers certainly do, but even an engineer at Calista understands now how good design looks like. The product marketing manager understands how good design looks like. Not to the expert level of the designer, but there has to be a cohesive understanding of understanding your counterparts in each function. The designer understands the basic engineering functions. The product marketing manager understands the basic engineering functions. So they can go 50% into each other territory while being 100% experts in their own. Now we have a really powerful team at hand. And if the vision, as long as the vision is clear and all products, they all layer up into an overarching brand vision of what we want to accomplish that we talked on earlier. So what I learned is as long as the communication path is clear and everybody knows the exact direction they're supposed to march in, you come out with phenomenal creations. Fast forward to 002, it was a very strategic decision what we wanted to accomplish with that line. And I think based on the rational decision making, you always have a gut feeling as well. And I still use that every week in the way I make decisions. There's data decisions, and then there's rational decisions that you speak out of experience or feedback or team discussions, but I still use my gut for basically everything that I do. And I think product decisions come back to that as well. There's a gut aspect to it, 30, 40, 50% of would you believe this is going to be a fantastic product and whatnot. So I think that's one thing, right? Maybe I was fortunate enough to get that from my dad, from my parents growing up. Maybe it's in the DNA, maybe it's how you grew up. I can't tell you. It's just how I'm wired. Um, so a lot of the team is now wired because we're driving this culturally to teach your gut how to make decisions, to let it be comfortable making decisions for you, and not just pieces of paper and information. Challenge data. Because data, if data would tell you the true story, every company in the world would be successful, very successful, because data is always there to grab. So turns out that's not the case, right? You got to have 30, 40, 50% gut feeling layer into that and interpret the data maybe differently and then make the right decision, specifically, I think, when it comes to products. So yeah, that's been a really cool journey. Again, during that journey, also learning a little more about myself, about how you approach problems, how you approach a topic. You grow with each project, right? It's fascinating just to see, right? It's not just because we've done two phenomenal product launches that you're not going to grow the exact same way for the next one, because there's new facets and new details on everything you approach.
Well, it's interesting too. You talk about going with your gut and gut feelings. I think that going with your gut is something that most people don't do because it requires a certain level of confidence.
Correct.
When you go with your gut, you're taking on, and I think it's an important topic to discuss because I don't think we talk about it nearly enough. You don't learn it in design school. You don't learn it in architecture school. You sometimes you don't even learn it through practical experience because it requires the flipping of a switch to trust one's gut in order to follow one's gut. And I think that that affects, I'm nature nurture. I don't know if you're born with the ability to do that or if it's something that maybe you learned from your parents along the way and from the family experience. But I think it's interesting, and I want to drill down on that a little bit with another example: partnerships and design partnerships. So you look at another line. You look at there's a central. I'm looking at the showering systems and the Central Park West, which was a partnership with the Robert A.M. Stern architects. Where do partnerships like this enter into the business cycle? Um, how do you decide which creatives to approach for partnerships? What does the partnership collaboration look like in that environment? I'm most curious too about the tough conversations. Back to my radio days, when I was a program director and people would come in and pitch me shows all the time. And sometimes you have to say, you know what, that's a terrible idea. It's just really bad, and I don't want to be any part of this at all. But some people you can't really say that to because of the level they have achieved. So there's kind of like this finer nuance. It's like, no, we can't really do that. But what if we did this? Um, what is that collaboration like? What are those partnerships like? When do you bring in the design team, the engineering team to talk to the individual creatives? And how does one go about developing a partnership with a brand like Callista?
Yeah, so a couple questions you asked. Let me maybe take a step back. And first of all, I think the approach to partnerships. Um, I think in order to bring a partner in for the Costa brand, and what is my general belief as well, they have to bring a new variable to the equation. Like they have to bring a new design layer to the conversation beyond maybe just utilizing their brand name, right? Beyond just looking at this is a commercial play, or they have a lot of reach, this is a fantastic marketing play. Like there has to be value creation for the design and product development aspect. Right? That I believe is very, very crucial. And the second piece is, I think, to your point, they have to be open to, um, they have their design ideas, but it is very crucial for my design team to also come in and work in tandem with them because plumbing and brassware is such a complicated topic, engineering wise, right? It's still one of the most complicated pieces in the house where water runs through, and one of the things that has to work every day over 20, 30, 40 years. And I think that the expertise bringing that back in and really creating this harmonious relationship of driving towards a design vision with the right underlying technology and engineering aspects is what has made Callista very, very successful. Right? We have strong relationships. Laura Croft, for example, you mentioned the Bauhaus inspired era. She was a huge inspiration for Callista, I would say, 10, 12 years ago when we brought her Pinacoletta collection, her Bastille collection, and others to the market, right? Like she really carved an entire design language of her own and helped build the Callista brand in that sense.
Sorry, who is this we're talking about?
Laura Croft.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Laura Croft, she's an industrial product designer, does a lot of different phenomenal product collaborations. So when she engaged Callista, I would say the last 10, 12 years, we really fed off of her inspiration of continue to build the brand. You go back 20 years, it's Michael Smith, Barbara Berry that have helped build the Costa brand. Fast forward to today, you're looking at Rams out of New York, you're looking at Workshop APD, you're looking at Nick DiGiulio for our kitchen faucets. So it's almost like each scenario, and we are working on a new collection with Laura Carrara as well. But each era, each phase, if you want to call it, had different outside influences, which I think makes the Callista brand quite unique. Because Callista, I think today, and that's one thing I'm very passionate about, is has the right mix of external designers that we work with and get inspiration for new designs, but also have a very, very strong internal design team. Guys in 002, for example, are 100% in-house creations. And I think that mix makes us very, very successful right now. And I also believe if you're too dependent on just outside designers and you just live off ideas that are not created from within, what does your brand at the end of the day then stand for? Right? What is it really about? So I think it has to be if you utilize outside designers for collection, it has to be a mix. You have to have a strong internal team as well, so you have shepherds of the brand that can kind of make sure that your core DNA keeps flowing through the entire portfolio of products, and it doesn't end up being one-off creations that are just good products by themselves, but don't speak a portfolio language. And we see that in the car industry quite a lot when they switch design firms and most car manufacturers nowadays work with outside designers. Things change rapidly every 5 or 6 years, and customers lose the touch to how the brand feels and looks. BMW is one of the latest examples that is going through very radical change, which has their core base very, very confused in where the design is headed because they might have not kept a strong internal viewpoint of where they're coming from the last 25, 30 years and how BMW used to look like. It was a very radical evolution of that design. So I do think there's a sweep in the middle that we're trying to trying to be very mindful about.
It, what does, I imagine that it's wonderful to be able to have the Kohler infrastructure. Do you feel like you're a boutique brand within a global brand? So you have this opportunity to create and be unique and do different things. Not that Kohler doesn't, but there's a certain responsibility that they have on the design side because you can't do everything, right? So you've got almost this ability to be a boutique brand company and make mistakes and try things because making mistakes is a huge part of growth. Uh, but you've also got this infrastructure to lean back on. Do you share a design team? Do you share an engineering team when it comes to testing product, running traps on how it works and making it work better, testing product before it goes out? the really important things, because, when you said, this is something that has to work for 30 or 40 years and you have water running through it, it's very, very important that the performative values are high. What does that relationship look like? And the things I mentioned, like engineering and testing and product development, how does that relationship work?
So I'd say at this point we found the sweet spot of how I think a small brand within owned by a much larger global brand is functioning and operating. So we are essentially a fully independent business, fully set up with our own teams, own go-to-market, own sales teams, own product teams, own engineering teams, own design. But we leverage the parent for all the great things that a small business could never do by itself. I'll give you a couple examples. So one is operational strength. So Kohler's global footprint of manufacturing, supply chain, warehousing, logistics, right, into the different markets is something we utilize today. That is why we are able to fulfill jobs in the Middle East very easily. It's why we're able to do jobs all over the world very easily. Because we do have local teams at our disposal that can support. We have local warehouse solutions. We have local customer service teams that could go on site. If you're a small company just starting out, you couldn't do all this in all these global markets day one. You would have to get yourself there over 10, 15, 20 years, building your own teams out. So the operational strength, the manufacturing as well, is a huge one, right? I think leveraging Kohler's best facility all over the world to produce our SKUs where the experts sit is again something a small business by itself wouldn't be able to leverage that far. The second big thing is platforms on the product side. Right? So when Kohler invested in their latest valving platform, which is one of the best ones in the world, if you think about it, it's installed in millions of homes. It rarely or never fails. Right? It is bulletproof. It is market tested. We utilize the same platforms. What a fantastic approach for a small luxury brand to really focus on the design, the aesthetic of the finish, but having your core foundation, the guts, battle proven, right? Battle hardened in market as it goes through millions of homes is a fantastic proposition also for our clients. Right? Plumbers love to install and work in luxury homes on Philips products. They're trained on it. When they go through plumbing school, they are trained on Kohler products at some point in their career. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to install, right? It is known. So I think this platform piece is another huge aspect of leveraging the strength of a large parent. The VW Group does it very well, for example, right? They all own Porsche, Lamborghini, and Audi, and all those three companies for the SUVs leverage the same chassis, the same transmission, the same engine setups, slightly tuned differently, but there's an economies of scale and underlying strength of looking what's behind the wall, and in general in the operational footprint where we're getting the best out of both worlds right now. And I think we're now bringing this really to the forefront, and that's why we're in phenomenal growth mode right now and are being able to execute things and really punching far above our weight of what we're doing right now.
You know what's interesting to me is you have on more than one occasion during our conversation here referenced the auto industry. And I find that telling and really important because the auto industry is one of those you it's interesting to me because when I talk to brands in our industry, I get a ton of correlations to fashion and some comparisons to jewelry. I've never found that our industry is even closely related to fashion or jewelry. You know what I mean? Because you have to have beauty and functionality. Fashion to me isn't necessarily about performative value as much as it is about beauty and intrigue and being provocative in many cases. Jewelry is about look and feel. The auto industry really does, and I totally get your point, right? You have to compare yourself to industries that you want to aspire to be like. I'll give you an example. I was watching CNBC one day, this is a while ago, and when Rolls-Royce had introduced their EV. And I listened to the CEO of the company. He said something that I'd never heard from an automotive manufacturer before. He said they view themselves as the purveyors of silent propulsion. It's like silent propulsion. That's amazing to me. And I want to juxtapose it against this idea because I think it speaks to what we're talking about. I grew up in Southern California, native Angelino, growing up in the San Fernando Valley in the 1980s, where car culture in Los Angeles was built on car culture.
Yep.
The experimentation in cars, what you can do with a vehicle is amazing, right? And when I heard this CEO of a company that is known to newer generations as older and perhaps stodgy and kind of set in its ways, to have someone come out and say, we want to be the purveyors of silent propulsion. What that says is it's a completely new way of thinking about not just the luxury design of a product, but the performative value and how that product is going to perform now and grow into the future. And I feel that because the plumbing side of the industry, from a growth perspective, from a experimentation perspective, I mean, look, we deliver water into a residential environment the same way now that we have for the for the past, what, 100 years, 80 years.
Yep.
I feel like we're on the precipice, we're on the tip of some of this experimentation leading to new ways, not just that product looks, but how the product performs. And I'll give you an example. Kohler has a steam generator, and I'm going to just sort of guess that Callista products are made to fit in seamlessly with a Kohler steam generator. But I imagine too that you don't necessarily produce your own, which is why I ask about sort of how this relationship with engineering and design, what you're free to do separate from the Kohler brand. Do you have your own engineering teams? And do you envision product development in the same way, using that example of Rolls-Royce and envisioning or re-envisioning silent propulsion?
Yeah, so we run our completely independent engineering team, but most of them sit in Kohler, Wisconsin, where about half the Calista staff is also located. The beauty about that is we're getting to use world-class facilities at our disposal that are on the Kohler campus. So there is automatically a lot of knowledge sharing, right? We also have two phenomenal AD departments, advanced development, right, where Kohler really works on the innovation side of things. And there are certain topics that really fit the boutique brands as well, right? Because not just Callista, we have Saks, we have Roburn, we have Clafs and Cast now, right? A UK company and a German company recently acquired within the last 2 years. So there's just this wealth of knowledge and innovation topics that we usually let the AD departments drive it, and then we'll figure out like what's going to fit the brand vision and what can we do, what can we even execute on a way that makes sense, right? That makes sense for our clients, that makes sense in terms of supply chain distribution and support. Large companies, they can roll out fairly complex electronic solutions because they have a dedicated support team, technical support team in the market that can come to your house in case you have an issue. We don't have that today. We could utilize our parent strength in that sense, right? But those are the fine lines and decisions where we just have to be also very careful in like what we roll out to make sure it still fulfills the brand promise and we can support it the right way. In terms of innovation, we have our own innovation topics as well. In terms of, I think, what ultimately we want to accomplish with design, with sustainability, with new topics we want to bring to the bathroom that we're approaching. So confidential, obviously, I can't talk about it yet as these things are coming to market over the coming years. But yeah, to your point, there's an underlying alignment with the parent because the parent drives phenomenal topics like helping people live gracious lives. gracious and sustainable lives is Kohler's vision. And we have to layer into that as well as a luxury brand and figure out like what is our portfolio that might speak to that, and what is our path for Callista. So that is very much aligned while still being in charge of our own destiny, driving it at the speed that we can, and making sure that we make the right decisions for our clients in that regard.
You can't just tell me everything you're working on right now that's coming to market. Uh, One of the things I wanted to ask you about, and because I think we have to, it's one of those moment in time conversations. So you and I are recording this on April 3rd, the day after a quote unquote Liberation Day, in which these tariffs, it was, to be honest with you, when I was watching it yesterday, it was staggering. And I was thinking about our conversation today while I was watching that yesterday. So you're based in Atlanta. When it comes, this is a multi-part question because I'm curious how you think about it. From a tariff point of view, from a manufacturing point of view, from a global sales perspective, from a international relations, you don't just sell domestically, you sell internationally, right? Um, how does how do you manage the whipsaw changes in the government decisions that affect your business? How is your pricing being affected by this now? How are your supply chains now in a post-COVID world, and how will that all be affected? Where do you manufacture? I know it's a ton of questions, but and where do you manufacture? Um, and how does this new reality change the way that you operate the business?
Yeah, I think beyond today, right? If I look at my last 5, 6 years really in GM roles, I mean, you're thinking of COVID depression in 2020, COVID boom in 21 and 22, post-COVID depression, market falling off again, downsizing 23 and 24, and now backing and now for us, the last 12 months back in growth mode. I mean, what a crazy time to go through. And now this tariff thing is the next thing, the next variable thrown at us, all in less than 5 years. So I think one lesson I learned is to never overreact. Like never overreact to the changes that are coming, right? As long as your base machine and your base business is working on the right things, I have high trust that the future is going to be bright and we're going to be just on the right path. You might not be growing 20+%. Yeah, I think that's probably out of the question for this year for a lot of companies. Um, we had a phenomenal, outstanding first quarter. So who knows what we would have done this year? We would have cracked that without the tariff coming in. But I think with the tariffs in right now, obviously we are tied to a global supply chain with our parent. Very, very complex scenarios. Like we have dedicated teams right now that have been working on this for 6 weeks straight every day. And then there's new variables being thrown in every day. We sent an email to all of our customers yesterday that we are going to take a price increase in the next 45 to 60 days. I didn't put a number in yet because we don't know yet. We simply don't know. But we had to get an announcement out, I think, to prepare the market. Kohler did the same thing in saying this. Yes, we have to react to that. This is real. There's tariffs on factories that we have overseas, right, that are going to import products. There's additional tariffs for copper, brass, aluminum that are being put in place that are used in our products, that are used in Roburn's products, for example. So it's such a volatile environment right now. I think what's most important, and well, my commitment to our customers is that we're only going to take as much as we truly need to cover these real scenarios in terms of price, right? Never exploit a situation like this to maybe reposition yourself or take extra, because I think everybody will be pressured enough already. We are going to have demand going down. There's no way around it, right? Consumer confidence will be at a very low point over the next coming months. Our industry, as you know, is lagging to changes because right now, let's say that the revenue we drove in the first quarter is from specifications from 8 to 12 months ago. They were done, they were finally placed in order now, but the spec with the designer and the client started 12 months ago. when they made a decision, oh, it's got to be this Callista brassware package for my master. So we're going to see a very delayed reaction to that when you see your order flow come down for a majority of the P&L for the majority of the business. Because in the Lux space, sales cycles can be anywhere between 6 and 18 months.
I'm just
Um,
curious. Sorry to interrupt you, Alex. I'm just curious. Did you see any front running on this? Designers rushing the specification project, running the decisions ahead of potential tariffs and ahead of. Did you see any front running on the inventory?
we saw a little bit. I think specifically more in the entry Lux high premium segment. I do think the market in the last 2 to 3 months had a little bit stronger push than usual to get your orders in. But if I just look at my run rate, we've had a strong run rate now for almost 24 months. So I've seen a consistent strong run rate with healthy growth. So I know there wasn't any panic buying or panic front loading orders. I just do know that that entry Lux high and premium segment will see a decline in the next 6 months. They are going to be more cautious placing orders or not place orders at all and play a waiting game. The high-end Lux market we will see. Again, these are just unprecedented scenarios like COVID was. You can only take a good estimation and be very careful though of how you invest your dollars right now as a business and how you have holdbacks in place, holdback plans for in case the economy does decline significantly. So yeah, we're staying true to our mantra not to overreact and continue to work on the right things that we know are going to be long-term successful. We did that during COVID when I think most companies pulled back product development. We invested heavily, which is why now we're reaping the rewards of the last 12 to 18 months. That's all work that was done during COVID, right? Our development timelines are 2 to 3 years. I expect the same thing right now. We'll keep working on the most important projects. You might deprioritize some and be a little bit more mindful about how you spend your time, your dollars. But yeah, unprecedented times. And I think it'll be a tough year. Our strong positioning right now and the strong penetration of product and our fantastic sales teams and relationships that we've built, I think are gonna help us navigate that storm quite well. But yeah, there's just so many variables at play right now. Nobody really knows.
I know it's crazy, right? So we're running low on time. And by the way, I knew this was going to happen. I knew I was going to run out of time before I got to all the topics that I wanted to discuss with you, Alex. So we're going to have you back. But before I let you go, I have one more question for you. And by the way, whenever I say that, it'll probably turn into two or three. So I hope you're okay on time. But one of the things that I've noticed over time, uh, because I've been doing the show for a while, and in the 12 years that I've been doing Convo by Design, it's really interesting to me. I've noticed this trend. Every time there's a major glitch in the system, every time something dramatic happens, whether it was 9/11 or the Great Recession or COVID, you have this new influx of individuals and creatives who come into the creative field, specifically design. Not so much architecture. I think architecture is pretty much a consistent because of certain educational requirements, but design is one of those creative endeavors where it seems like every time there's a major change in cultural norms in society, there's this influx into design, and this is no exception. I think right now we're going to be talking about people who are making career choices into the field of design today because of what's happening now. But I wanted to ask you about the designers who came into the business when COVID started. Because now these are individuals who have been in the business for 3 years, 2, 3 years, going on to that 5 year mark. And I feel like there's this line of delineation between designers who have been in the business 3 to 5 years or more, or 3 to 5 years or less. The ones who have been in less don't understand, and this is a blanket conversation. So, I hope nobody gets offended by this, but they don't understand what it means to create a partnership or relationship with a brand. The ones who have been in the business, your Ramses, your Barbara Berries, they get it. they've been doing it a long time at a high level and they understand this. How do you work with younger, newer design talent and create a farm club of designers that you would like to work with in the future? Because I get this question a lot, like, "Hey, can you introduce me to so and so?" Or "I heard them on the show. Could you introduce me? I'd love to work with them. How can I approach them?" Get it all the time, and it's one of those questions that even after doing this as long as I have, there's so many different variables and so many different answers. I can't offer anyone anything of real concrete value. So I'm curious, how do you work with new talent, new designers, those new in the business? Because these are the people who are going to be from new specifiers to major specifiers in the next 10 to 15 years. How do
Yeah.
you grow that?
So, and I think a lot of brands have lost that in COVID, and I think that's the community aspect of our industry. And COVID put an additional chokehold on that, meaning that people couldn't be in market. A lot of sales staff was laid off, right? People that had physical jobs in market. And, as only being in my late 30s, that might sound a little old school coming from me, right? But I think not everything has to be virtual, and I think should not be virtual. The importance of our industry is still, and I'm a big believer and big fan of that, is one I enjoy the industry so much, is the physical interactions you get to have in market, right? Between brands, manufacturers, and designers. So the short answer is, I think, for the designers, be engaged with the brand and their local reps, right? Their local sales teams. For example, we're a brand that's very active. We try to be very active in every market, whether we partner with a showroom to host a dinner event, whether we host a small product knowledge base at a design firm, where we bring product to the designer still, which was done a long time ago. People stopped doing it during COVID. It came back. Thank God it came back, because it's so important to for both sides, right? The designers to understand the product better, the brands to build a relationship and really put their USPs on the table. Um, and whether we host small product launch events at phenomenal restaurants in all the fun cities across the country, and most of the designers are active in, right? So I think for manufacturers, it's important to have a very strong presence of sales teams and brand representation in the market, physical relationships that are still being built. I think for the designers, it's important to not just browse everything online, right? It is still important, and I think we've seen a significant drop off with the younger designers going to showrooms. And I think that's a miss. Yes, you don't have to go to a showroom for every spec, but I think what the generation of the Ramsers and the workshops, right? So Matt Berman, for example, who's the founder of Workshop, they still had like all the knowledge like learned on hand, touched every product, learned everything about plumbing there is to learn specifically, right? And all the other adjacent categories. And I think we need to make sure that stays in place, because everybody can be a luxury brand on Instagram and look nice in a rendered picture. Everybody can do that, and then you get specified online, right? And then there's a whole array of missing interactions between how does the product feel? Is it high quality? What's the market feedback from the showroom consultant about that brand? Are they going to answer my call if something goes wrong? What is spare part availability 10 to 20 years from now? So I think the hope and the wish is really for both the manufacturer side and the design side to continue to build those relationships and just be very active in those markets and engage. And we're doing a very good job with that. And it's one of the success metrics we've looked at the last 18, 24 months, right? I think bringing that engagement to an all-time high again of just being visible and being active. It's also the most fun part of our community. The most fun part is to bring new products to market and talk to designers about it, by far. Um, and hopefully the next generation will embrace that the same way, and then try to do everything to build a relationship with boutique brands like us, to be a knowledge and to be a brand ambassador at some point as well. Don't forget, designers are at the end of the day our biggest brand ambassadors out there in the market.
So the takeaway is be curious and ask questions
Be curious and know and be engaged.
and be engaged.
Go to industry events, right? Go to industry shows. Go to invitations that the brands, all sorts of different brands are setting up in our industry, and just be a community member. be a community member, and be engaged.
I love that. That's great advice. Alex, thank you for doing this. I can't, the time just absolutely flew. We're definitely going to have you back because I have a whole second list of questions. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, that was so much fun. Thank you. And let's do that again. A lot more to talk about.
The Design Hardware Showroom is a space where specifiers can go and find an incredible selection of high-end faucets, luxury tile, natural stone, wood floors, and bespoke hardware, and so much more. Select products are presented in a holistic manner, strategically arranged to stimulate creativity and transition your vision from the conceptual stage to a fully realized space. You will find everything you're looking for, even the products by brands you didn't know you didn't know. Surprise and delight. Am I right? All under one roof on 3rd Street in Los Angeles, just up the street from the Grove. Conveniently located, free parking available. Stop by to find inspiration, collect samples, get expert advice, and tackle everything on your specification list all in one place. Visit them online at designhardware.com, at Design Hardware and Flooring on the socials, or in the real world, 6053 West 3rd Street in Los Angeles. Alex, huge thank you. Thank you for taking the time to catch up. I really enjoyed the insight. And of course, thank you to our amazing partners, TimberTech, Pacific Sales, and Design Hardware. These are incredible companies and true friends of the trade. So please keep them in mind and give them an opportunity on your next project. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing the show with your friends and colleagues. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and you will get every new episode automatically to your feed. What could be better than that, right? And listen, I always love hearing from you. So please keep those messages coming. Email me at convobydesign@outlook.com. And follow along and participate in the conversation on Instagram at Convo by Design with an X. Until next week, thank you for spending this time together. Be well, stay focused, and do your best to rise above the chaos.